back, Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa has praised Rwanda for some of its strides in uplifting its economy and creating an enabling environment for business. He told journalists at a media briefing at the World Economic Forum underway in Kigali that despite the difference in the size of the economies, South Africa can learn from Rwanda. He reassured investors that the South African government is moving full steam ahead to create a better environment for investors, saying it has a lot to offer. Well, Nompusa Ziba was at that briefing in the Rwandan capital. She joins me now from there. Nompu, good afternoon. Some very reassuring words from the Deputy President there on South Africa's economic future.
Thanks very much, Devon. Yes, well, he's ever the optimist, so it would seem. He spoke in very positive terms. He was asked a question about the bilateral relations between South Africa and Rwanda, because we know that historically they haven't been great, but he was saying that by virtue of Team South Africa, which he was leading here as a delegation, by virtue of them coming here to Rwanda, it actually showed that they were keen to partner with Rwanda. And as you did mention in your introduction, that he was singing the praises of Rwanda, particularly in the strides it's made in the area of ICT, saying that South Africa has much to learn from Rwanda, and Rwanda in turn can also learn from South Africa in the strides that it's made. He's talked specifically about housing, how South Africa has built, or the South African government has built more than 4 million homes for people, those types of developments and progress. He talked about the fact that he felt that this was a win-win for not only governments, because heads of states were here, governments were here represented. It wasn't only a win-win for them, but also for business. He was advised by both the private sector and state-owned enterprises that indeed that it was worthwhile coming here. There's the real possibility of deals to be made. He talked about contacts being transformed into contracts. So very positive indeed. A question was put to him about the stability of South Africa. We often hear that there are concerns about South Africa and its political stability. He says that there isn't anything of the sort. There's no instability. We have a good constitution, and of late we've had our institutions tested and shown that the constitution is number one. Let's take a look at what he had to say about that.
The South African democracy is stable, it's strong, it's robust. So South Africa Inc. is charging ahead, resolving its problems and challenges, and nothing that will disturb that stability is going to happen. We have far too much at stake as a country and as a democracy to allow any form of instability.
And then, Nompu, there was this frustrating issue of red tape, which also came up. I understand he was challenged on how we will make it easier for investors to be doing business here.
Indeed, he was challenged. You know, the issue of red tape has always been flagged up, and it's one of the reasons that some small businesses don't even pass the hurdle to make a contribution to the economy. So he was saying that government has resolved that it's going to establish what's called a one-stop shop, where people can go to a government department which has everything in it in terms of applying for licenses, whether it's a water permit, a mining rights license or whatever. You go to one place and get everything that you need. You place forward what your requirements are, and if you qualify, then that department would be able to assist you. But one of the challenges that was put to him was South Africa does have, or at least the South African government does have, a lot of departments. So if they are going to go ahead down that route, it may mean that they'll have to streamline those departments, which could mean that some departments fall away, which could have implications for jobs and so on and so forth. That was put to him as a challenge. He said there is political will to ensure that this one-stop shop happens, because it needs to happen for South Africa to remain attractive to investment. And he basically said that the streamlining process is underway. The minister responsible in the presidency, Jeff Radebe, did say that everything was on track, but he couldn't put an exact timeline as to when this thing would be established. But it's recognized that there's some urgency on this. Let's take a look at what the Deputy President had to say about it.
We've decided we're going to set up a one-stop shop where the would-be investor just goes to one office, to one desk, informs the official that this is what I intend, this is what I want, and from then on that unlocks a whole plethora of permits, licenses and everything. Now in Rwanda they have perfected this.
Yes, indeed, Nompo. Just finally, before I let you go, what's your take on how Team South Africa has postured itself at this WEF summit? I mean, was it convincing for you as we come to an end to this gathering?
Well, I feel that Team South Africa came here in great force. You had ministers from, all the ministers from the economic cluster, from economic development, the DTI, and you had the finance minister here as well as Deputy President Ramaphosa. So definitely there were heavy hitters here who are interested in promoting development not only within South Africa but across the continent, trying to see what partnerships can be forged, all in the aim of obviously boosting Africa's potential. So I think definitely they came here, the representation showed the seriousness with which African development is being approached, and there have been lots of engagements at the plenaries and obviously on the sidelines as well. Like I did mention before, Deputy President Ramaphosa did indicate that state-owned enterprises were interacting with other state-owned enterprises from other countries and feeling that there are some synergies that they can work together to perhaps do some deals and so on and so forth. The general feeling, not just from our government but among delegates here, seems to be one of optimism. But of course, the most important thing we know is that we have to move away from talk and actually see concrete solutions on the ground so that 10 years hence we're not having the same conversations, and the advancements that we've seen in countries like Rwanda, which has made massive strides in the past 20 years or so, we actually see in other countries like ours going forward. Devon.
Oh, thanks very much. It's live from Kigali at the World Economic Forum Africa leg. Nompo Siziba there on the last day of the WEF summit.